So next we welcome Brigid Whitney-Gallagher, a manager in our client services department. Thank you for being with us, Brigid. She's a subject matter expert in MIPS Value Pathways, as well as many other things. She has a long and varied career, a true generalist. We can't pin her down to any one particular role, but she's been with us, I think, longer than anyone but me in the
I think
company.
so. I think so.
And colleague says she is never stumped.
That's quite
So,
the
Brigid,
challenge.
welcome. So, what's
Thank
important
you.
to know about the MIPS value pathways in 2023, Brigid?
Yeah, so MIPS Value Pathways really represent CMS's response to providers and practices who are struggling with MIPS program and quality reporting in general. It is a pathway to reporting that CMS introduced last year and has really given a lot of attention to moving into 2023. They have added different pathways that someone could choose, which are kind of clusters around a disease state or specialty. They've also given us a lot more information and kind of fleshed out how they anticipate the Value Pathways program would work. So, a couple important things to note for 2023 to report a MIPS Value Pathway or an MVP, a practice or provider would need to register and select the value pathway that they would like to report. You can only select one value pathway, but you can change which pathway you select until that registration opportunity closes on November 30th. Um, you can also continue to report traditional MIPS and a MIPS value pathway. That's completely acceptable. Our understanding is you would get scored on whichever category you did better on, whether it's traditional MIPS or the MIPS value pathway. Um, MIPS has been with us for a while here, and we know it can be challenging for folks for a lot of different reasons. CMS really has responded to some of the feedback that they've heard that MIPS is too complex. There are too many variables. There are too many choices. You can do this measure with that one and not that one, and this guy, but not that guy. And that can be really challenging for practices trying to navigate this and run a practice and see patients. So the value pathways is a way that CMS is trying to reduce that burden on practices and providers. You can report a MIPS value pathway as an individual provider, as a group, meaning at your tax ID level, or as a subgroup. And there are some details in there that would make sense to talk about if you have further questions.
Thank you, Brigid. And do you have any advice for our listeners to prepare for MIPS value pathways?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I just recommend is that everybody look at MIPS value pathways, whether you think it's a good fit for you or not. For those practices or providers that are interested in reporting through MIPS value pathways, take a really close look at the value pathway that you are considering. The devil is really in the details with these. The value pathway has a limited amount of measures to select from, a limited amount of improvement activities. And so it makes sense to really dig in and understand exactly what your MIPS value pathway is requiring and make sure that that makes sense for your practice.
Great. And with 12 MVPs available for 2023, uh, is it a good idea if they're doing an MVP to also do traditional MIPS, or is that too much effort?
Yeah, so I think doing both is a great way to kind of dip your toe in the water. It is not necessarily any additional effort. Those quality measures that you're doing for your MVP and your improvement activities that you're doing for MVP, also you're doing for traditional MIPS. So you wouldn't have to make different measure selection or different activity selection. And because CMS is going to score you on whichever path gives you the better score, there's really not a lot of risk. It's a great way to kind of dip your toe into the MVP arena. CMS has communicated that that's really the direction that they see quality reporting moving. And so it makes sense to get get comfortable with it, get used to it, learn some of the nuances, understand how it might apply to your practice before there's a lot of skin in the game, or really before there's money on the line.
Great. Thanks a lot for all the great input, Brigid.
Happy to help, Dan. Thank you.